My husband was my final target, and tonight was the night I had to kill him. The thought played on a loop in my head as I stood in our penthouse kitchen, a kitchen bigger than my entire childhood apartment, holding a steak knife. Julian Thorne, New York's most powerful underworld tycoon, my husband of 3 weeks, the man who ordered my parents' deaths a decade ago. The champagne flute in my other hand felt like ice. This wasn't the plan. The plan was clean, clinical, distant. Marry the mark, get close, finish the job, vanish. The plan did not include learning he hummed in the shower, or that he took his coffee black with 1 sugar, or that his laugh was low and quiet and made something in my chest tighten. I set the glass down. My hand was steady, an assassin's hand. Raven Rossi, the ghost who married the king, that's who I was, or who I was supposed to be. The problem was Julian Thorne. He wasn't a cartoon monster. He was quiet, watchful. He caught me when I tripped over a rug our first day here. He didn't say anything, just steadied me with a hand on my elbow, his touch firm and warm, and then walked away. He came home late but always texted. Running late. Don't wait up. Once he'd found me asleep on the couch, a file on the Morty family shipments open on my laptop. I jolted awake in a panic, but he just draped a blanket over my shoulders. "Long night, Mrs. Thorne?" he'd asked, his voice a soft rumble. He'd called me by my alias, Mia, but the way he said Mrs. Thorne felt like a brand. I was slipping. Sloan, my contact, had warned me. Remember the protocol, no emotional attachments. He's a job, a means to an end. The end was supposed to be a bullet, not this, domestic haze. The penthouse elevator chimed its arrival. My pulse jumped. Showtime. He walked in, shrugging off a charcoal overcoat that probably cost more than my first car. Julian Thorne moved with a predator's grace, the kind that made a room go quiet without him saying a word. He wasn't just handsome, he was a force. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes the color of a winter storm. He looked at me, and for a second the professional mask of the bored housewife I wore felt paper-thin. "Long day at the office, honey?" I asked, forcing a smile. The Underworld Tycoon ran a legitimate front, Thorne Holdings, a corporate empire that masked his real business. I worked there now in the marketing department. A new hire, another layer to the lie. "Endless," he said, his gaze sweeping over me, lingering on the knife in my hand. "Planning my demise." My blood went cold. I forced a laugh that sounded too bright. "Just dinner, unless you've been naughty." He walked toward me, and every instinct screamed danger, but not the kind I was trained for. This was a slower, deeper pull. He stopped a foot away, close enough that I could smell his cologne, sandalwood, and something dark like ink. "I'm always naughty, Raven," he murmured. He never used my alias when we were alone. He'd chosen Raven the night we met, saying Mia didn't fit. The irony was a blade in my gut. He took the knife from my hand, his fingers brushing mine. You look tired." He turned to the steak. "How was your day? Anyone give you trouble?" I thought of my boss, the faceless CEO of Thorne Holdings I was supposedly trying to impress to get a promotion. The promotion that would get me access to his private floor. The same man standing in front of me. "No trouble, just spreadsheets, thrilling stuff." "I heard you were asking about the CEO." He didn't look up from the cutting board. "Curious about the man in charge." The air thickened. "Just office gossip. They say he's a recluse, a ghost." "He's a man who values privacy," Julian said, his voice neutral, "and loyalty above all else." The unspoken warning hung between us. I busied myself with setting the table. The table was set for 2, with real silver and crystal, a far cry from the takeout containers of my old life. "I got us tickets to the carnival on the pier tomorrow," I said, changing the subject. "I thought it might be fun, normal couple stuff." He glanced at me, a faint, unreadable smile on his lips. "Normal. I'd like to see your version of normal, Raven." Later that night, I lay awake, Julian asleep beside me, his breathing deep and even. The digital clock glowed too, 17 a.m. My phone, hidden in a hollowed-out book in my closet, vibrated. A text from Sloan. Status. "The timeline is moving. Morty is getting impatient." I typed back, my fingers numb. "In position, gathering final intel." "Don't gather. Execute. He's not a man you study. He's a target you eliminate. Remember why you're there." I remembered the warehouse fire, my father's hand slipping from mine, my mother's scream swallowed by smoke, the whispered name, Morty, Julian's family. I slipped out of bed, padding silently to the walk-in closet. In a hidden panel behind my shoe rack was my kit. A suppressed pistol, a garrote, vials of untraceable poison, tools of my trade. I picked up the pistol, its weight familiar and comforting. A floorboard creaked behind me. I froze, the gun hidden behind my back. Julian stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the faint light from the bedroom. He wore only sleep pants, his chest bare. He looked more dangerous than ever. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. "Just looking for my other slipper," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. He stepped into the closet, the space suddenly too small. He didn't turn on the light. His eyes seemed to glow in the dark. "You talk in your sleep." My breath caught. "I do." You said it has to be tonight." He took another step. I could feel the heat from his skin. "Care to elaborate?" He knows, he has to know. The gun felt like a burning coal in my hand. This was it. The moment. I could raise it, press it to his chest, and end it. Avenge my parents. Fulfill my contract. But my arm wouldn't move. I looked up into his stormy eyes and saw not a monster, but the man who made terrible coffee but brought it to me in bed. The man who, just yesterday, had quietly transferred money to a children's hospital after reading about it in the paper. "I meant the laundry," I whispered, the lye ash in my mouth. "The delicates, they have to be hung tonight or they're ruined." He stared at me for a long, endless moment. Then he reached out, not for the gun but to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "My fierce little housewife," he murmured, a trace of amusement in his voice. "So concerned with domestic duties." He leaned down and kissed my forehead, a chaste, gentle kiss that shattered me more completely than any violence could have. "Go back to bed, Raven. The laundry can wait." He turned and left me standing there in the dark, the hidden gun heavy in my sweaty hand, my mission in tatters, and a terrible, wonderful warmth spreading through the ice in my veins. The carnival was a riot of noise and light, a stark contrast to the silent tension of the penthouse. Julian played his part perfectly, the indulgent, wealthy husband. He won me a giant, ugly teddy bear at the shooting gallery with a display of marksmanship that was so casual, so flawless, it sent a fresh chill down my spine. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" I asked, trying to sound impressed and airheaded. "Summer camp," he deadpanned, handing the bear to a wide-eyed little girl nearby. Her father stammered thanks. Julian just nodded, his attention already back on me. "Your turn." "I've never held a gun in my life," I lied, putting on a show of clumsy incompetence. I missed the target by a mile, the pellet pinging off the back wall. He moved behind me, his body aligning with mine, his arms coming around to guide my hands. His breath was warm against my ear. "Sight alignment, slow breath, squeeze, don't pull." His touch was electric, distracting. I missed again. "See," I said, forcing a pout. "Hopeless." "You're shaking," he observed, his voice low. "Nervous." "Just cold," I lied. He didn't call me on it. He just took the rifle, paid for another round, and hit the bullseye 5 times without blinking. He claimed a smaller bear and tucked it under my arm. "For you, a consolation prize." We were walking toward the Ferris wheel when my phone buzzed. "Sloan, he's at the carnival. The CEO is attending a charity gala. The event is your backup window. Do not miss it." I looked at Julian, who was buying cotton candy. The CEO was here with me. The gala was a trap or a test. My mind raced. "Everything okay?" Julian asked, offering me a pink cloud of sugar. "Fine, just Lucy from work wants gossip." I took the cotton candy, my mind elsewhere. The gala, I had to go. It was my alibi, my escape route if the close-range kill failed. That night, back at the penthouse, I told him I had a work event, a charity gala for the Thorn Foundation. "It's mandatory for new hires, networking." Julian was at his desk, reviewing documents. He didn't look up. The Thorn Foundation Gala, tonight. Yes, boring, I know, but I have to make an impression. He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. Wear the black dress, the one with the silver threading, it suits you. He knew which dress, he noticed. The realization was a tiny, dangerous fissure in my resolve. Okay. I might have to make an appearance myself later, he said casually, returning to his papers. Business, I'll try to swing by. My heart stopped. If he saw me there in the crowd, while the CEO was supposed to be on stage. No, don't trouble yourself, it's just a stuffy party. I'll be home early. His lips twitched. I insist. What kind of husband would I be if I didn't support my wife's career? There was no way out. The gala was a death trap. I went to our bedroom to get ready, my thoughts scrambling. I had to warn Sloane. Abort. But when I reached for my secret phone, it was gone. The hollowed-out book was empty. A cold dread seeped into my bones. I checked my jewelry box. The necklace Sloane had given me, a pretty thing with a hidden camera, was also gone. The door to the bedroom opened. Julian stood there, leaning against the frame. In his hand, dangling from his fingers, was my necklace. Looking for this? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. The world tilted. I stared, my mouth dry. It's a lovely piece, he continued, walking toward me. He held it up to the light. Exquisite craftsmanship. The hidden lens is almost undetectable. Almost. He let it drop onto the dresser with a faint click. Who gave it to you, Raven? This was the confrontation. The moment the masks came off, I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. A friend. A friend who wants footage of my home, my habits. He closed the distance between us. My wife. I said nothing. The lies were all used up. He cupped my face, his touch surprisingly gentle. Tell me who you're working for. Is it the Russians? The cartel? Tell me and I can protect you. The words were a vice around my heart. He thought I was a spy for a rival syndicate. He didn't know I was the assassin sent for his head. In that moment, the truth felt even more impossible than the lie. I'm not working for anyone, I whispered. I found it at a thrift store. I thought it was pretty. He searched my eyes, his own stormy with conflict. He wanted to believe me. I could see it. The man who caught falling waitresses and won teddy bears for little girls wanted to believe his wife. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. The gala is canceled, Raven. A security issue. You're staying home tonight. It's mandatory. Not anymore. His tone brooked no argument. It was the voice of the Underworld Tycoon, not Julian, my husband. We're staying in. We'll order food. Watch a movie. Be normal. He was locking me down, containing the threat. But he was keeping me close, not throwing me out. That meant something. Or it was a longer, more cruel game. As he turned to leave, my eyes fell on the necklace, and I saw it. A tiny, almost invisible seam near the clasp that hadn't been there before. It had been tampered with, opened, modified. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a camera. It was a bomb. And Julian had just handled it. The world shrank to the size of that necklace on the dresser. A pretty, poisonous thing. My handler hadn't just wanted intel. Sloane wanted a guaranteed kill, a remote-detonated body bomb, and Julian Thorne, the man who noticed which dress I wore, had just held it in his bare hands. Every instinct screamed to grab it, to throw it, to scream a warning. But the trained part of me, the ghost, the assassin, froze. If I reacted now, I confirmed everything. I revealed I knew exactly what it was. The game would be over. He'd kill me, or worse, lock me away somewhere to be interrogated. My mission would fail. My parents would remain unavenged. But the thought of him hurt. Because of me. That was a different kind of failure, one I hadn't been trained for. Is something wrong? Julian's voice cut through the static in my head. He was watching me, his gaze sharp, missing nothing. I forced my eyes away from the necklace, up to his face. No, just disappointed about the gala. I bought a new dress. The lie was automatic, brittle. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to my cheek again. This time, his thumb stroked my skin, a slow, deliberate caress. There will be other galas. His eyes dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. Stay here. He left the room, taking the tension with him but leaving the dread. I stared at the necklace. It's inert until activated. It needs a signal. That's what Sloane would say. But Sloane had also said this was a simple marriage for access job. Sloane had lied. I had to get it out of the house. Now. I snatched it up. The metal was cool. I half expected it to vibrate, to tick. It was just a piece of jewelry, a deadly one. I moved to the window, my mind racing. I could throw it into the courtyard below. But that would just move the danger, not eliminate it. Someone could find it. A child. Going somewhere. I whirled. Dante, Julian's consigliere, stood in the doorway. He was a wall of a man, impeccably dressed, with eyes that held no warmth. He was Julian's shadow, his most trusted blade. And right now, he was looking at the necklace in my hand. "Just putting it away," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It doesn't go with my outfit." Dante's smile was thin. "The boss wants you in the living room. Movie's starting." "I'll be right there." He didn't move. His message was clear. Now, I had no choice. I dropped the necklace into my jewelry box and closed the lid with a soft, final click. It felt like sealing a coffin. In the living room, Julian had changed into sweatpants and a gray t-shirt. He looked younger, more approachable. The Underworld Tycoon was gone, replaced by a handsome man waiting to watch a movie with his wife. The disconnect was dizzying. He'd ordered Thai food. It was spread out on the coffee table. He patted the spot on the plush sofa next to him. "I picked a thriller. Figured you'd like it." I sat, my body stiff. The movie started, a blur of sound and color. I couldn't focus. All I could think about was the bomb in the next room and the man whose shoulder I was leaning against. Halfway through, his arms settled around me. I flinched. "You're tense," he murmured, his lips near my temple. "The movie's scary," I whispered. "It's not the movie." His hand slid down my arm, his fingers tracing idle patterns. "You've been on edge since we got home, since before that." He paused. "The shooting gallery, you weren't just cold, you were terrified." I stayed silent, watching the screen where a car was careening off a cliff. "I have enemies, Raven," he said, his voice so low it was almost part of the movie's soundtrack. "Powerful, ruthless people. It comes with the territory. If someone is threatening you, if they forced you into something." He turned my face toward him, forcing me to meet his eyes. The storm in them was calm, deep. "Tell me. I can make it stop. I can protect you." The offer was a siren's song. To lay down the weapon, to hand him the truth, to let the powerful Underworld Tycoon shield me from my own handler. For a heartbeat, I wanted it. Desperately. But then I saw my father's face. I heard the name Morty. Julian Thorne was Morty. He'd taken his mother's name to distance himself from the old world infamy, but the blood was the same. The empire was the same. "No one's threatening me," I said, pulling away gently. "I'm just not used to all this." I gestured vaguely at the penthouse, the luxury hymn. He studied me, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay." He didn't press. He just pulled me back against him, his grip firmer this time. "But the offer stands, always." We finished the movie in silence. The hero won. The bomb in my jewelry box did not explode. The next week was a slow-motion game of chess. Julian had me working from home due to a security audit at Thorne Holdings. I was a prisoner in a gilded cage. Dante was a frequent, silent presence. My secret phone was never returned. I found small ways to push back to test the bars. I asked to visit my sick aunt, Sloane. Denied. I asked to go grocery shopping alone. Denied. Julian provided everything. He was courteous, attentive, and utterly in control. The only time the mask slipped was at night. He'd hold me in his sleep, his body curled around mine as if shielding me from an unseen threat. Once, I woke from a nightmare about the warehouse, screaming. He was awake in an instant, holding me, rocking me, whispering nonsense words in Italian until I stopped shaking. He never asked about the dream. I was cracking. The ghost was fatting, and Raven Rossi, the woman who was falling for her target, was emerging. It was a catastrophic vulnerability. The break came from an unexpected direction. Detective Shaw. He showed up at the penthouse building one afternoon when Julian was at a business I now knew meant a sit-down with his capos. Dante was with him. I was alone with the doorman and the security system. Shaw flashed his badge at the building's camera. I'd like to speak with Mrs. Thorne regarding a security concern. The doorman called up. I could have refused, but Shaw was an outside variable, a wild card. I needed one. Send him up. Shaw was in his 40s with a tired face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He didn't sit when I offered. Mrs. Thorne, you're a hard woman to get a moment with. My husband is protective. What's this about? We're investigating a series of threats against prominent business figures. Your husband's name has come up. We also have an ongoing investigation into the Morty crime family's activities. He watched me closely. That name mean anything to you? My pulse hammered. It's an old crime family, isn't it? I read about them in the papers. Old but not inactive. We believe Julian Thorne may be a target of theirs, or perhaps an asset. He let the implication hang. Your marriage was rather sudden. Court records show a whirlwind romance. When you know, I said, my socialite mask perfectly in place. Do you know, I mean? He took a step closer, lowering his voice. Look, I'm not here to bust up a happy home, but if you're in over your head, if you've seen or heard anything that doesn't add up, there are ways out. Witness protection, new identities, we can keep you safe. It was the second time a man had offered to keep me safe in a week. One was a criminal, the other a cop. The irony was bitter. My husband keeps me very safe, detective. Thank you for your concern. He sighed, seeing the wall. He handed me a card. If that changes, call me before it's too late. The moment he left, the penthouse felt suffocating. Shaw's visit proved two things. The police were closing in, and Julian's world was starting to fracture. Sloane, or the real Morty family, was making moves. I had to act. The necklace was a dead end. I needed my gear. I remembered the one place Julian might not have searched, the guitar case. The beautiful, pristine acoustic guitar that leaned in the corner of the living room, a prop for our shared love of music. I'd never touched it. I walked over, my heart in my throat, and opened the case. The guitar lay there, untouched. But in the compartment under the neck, tucked beneath the velvet, was my pistol, and a note in Julian's precise handwriting. I prefer you armed. At least I know where this one is. J. He'd known about this gun all along. He'd left it for me. A test, a gift, a means of defense or a means to hang myself. I took the gun. It felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. That night, when Julian came home, I was waiting for him in the living room, the gun on the coffee table between us. He stopped when he saw it. His eyes flicked from the weapon to my face. He looked tired. Long day, sweetheart, he asked, as if I'd put out a plate of cookies. Who am I, Julian? My voice was quiet, flat. He didn't play dumb. He walked to the bar, poured 2 fingers of bourbon, and downed it. I was hoping you'd tell me. You know I'm not Mia. You know about the gun, the necklace. You have my phone. Who do you think I am? He turned, leaning against the bar. Theories? A corporate spy planted by a rival conglomerate, an undercover fed with a very creative approach. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. An assassin sent by my dear cousin, Matteo Morty, to finally end the family feud by ending me. He said it so calmly. My breath caught. He was looking right at me, waiting for a reaction. I gave him none. Which one gets me killed the fastest? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. The Fed. I have a policy about law enforcement. The corporate spy gets a one-way ticket out of the country. The assassin. He set his glass down and walked toward me. The assassin is more complicated. He stopped on the other side of the coffee table, the gun between us like a border. An assassin would be here for a reason. Revenge, usually. Money, sometimes. An assassin would have had a dozen chances to kill me in my sleep. In the shower. Tonight. His eyes locked on mine. An assassin who hasn't pulled the trigger might be waiting for something, or someone might have gotten in her way. The air was charged, thick enough to choke on. What could get in an assassin's way? I whispered. A change of heart, he said softly. A discovery that the target isn't the monster she thought, Or he took the final step around the table, now standing right in front of me. He didn't touch me, or she might have fallen in love with him. Tears, hot and sudden, pricked my eyes. I blinked them back, furious with myself. That would be a fatal mistake for both of them. The most fatal, he agreed. He reached out, his hand hovering near my cheek, then dropped it. The New Year's Eve party at the corporate office. Tomorrow night. It's the biggest event of the year. Everyone will be there. I knew what he was saying. It was the perfect cover for a kill, a crowded, chaotic environment. You're inviting me to your execution. I'm giving you a choice, Raven. His voice was gravel now. Come to the party. If you're who I hope you're not, that's where you'll make your move, and I'll be waiting. He finally touched me, his thumb brushing away a traitorous tear that had escaped. Or don't come, disappear tonight. Use the gun if you need to get past Dante. The safe in my study has cash and passports. Take one, go, vanish, and we'll both live with the mystery. He was offering me an out, a clean escape. No vengeance, but no blood on my hands. My parents' faces swam before me, blurred by the tears I couldn't stop. Why, I choked out. Why would you give me that? His expression fractured, just for a second, revealing a depth of pain that mirrored my own. Because the thought of you in a cage or in the ground is worse than the thought of you gone. He leaned forward until his forehead rested against mine. But if you stay, if you fight for us, then we face whatever comes together. No more lies. He pulled back, his gaze searching mine one last time. Then he turned and walked to the bedroom, leaving me alone with the gun, the passports, and the impossible choice. I stood there for an hour, maybe more. I picked up the gun. It was a familiar weight. The tool of my revenge. I thought of the passports, freedom, anonymity. I thought of Julian, of his hand catching me, of his laugh, of the way he said, my fierce little housewife, of the agony in his eyes when he offered to let me go. The ghost of Raven Rossi, the assassin, screamed that this was a trap. The woman I was becoming knew it was something far more dangerous, a last chance. At dawn, I made my decision. I went to the study, opened the safe. I took a passport and a stack of cash. I packed a small bag. I wrote a note. Then I took the necklace from the jewelry box. I carefully, using tools from my kit, disarmed the tiny explosive charge. I removed the camera. I left the harmless, pretty shell of it on top of the note. I didn't take a passport. I didn't take the cash. I took the gun. And I got ready for the New Year's Eve party. The Thorn Holdings New Year's Eve gala was a symphony of forced joy. 1,000 glittering people in a ballroom worth more than God drinking champagne that tasted like betrayal. I moved through them in the black dress with silver threading, the one he said suited me. The pistol was a cold, familiar weight against the small of my back, secured in a custom holster. I'd disarmed their bomb. Now I carried my own. I saw him the moment I entered. Julian Thorne, the Underworld Tycoon, holding court at the center of the room. He wore a tuxedo like a weapon, all sharp lines and dark promise. He was smiling, shaking hands, the perfect CEO. But his eyes scanned the crowd like a radar, and when they found me, the smile didn't reach them. It was a look of grim acknowledgement. You came. My plan was simple. Get close. Get him alone. And I didn't let myself finish the thought. The "and" was a black hole where my mission and my heart had collided. I was halfway to him when a hand closed around my elbow. Sloane. She was disguised as a waitress, her hair a different color, but her eyes were the same hard flint. You're late, and you're not wearing the necklace. Her voice was a venomous whisper. I had to ditch it. Security sweep, I lied, pulling my arm free. I have my primary, I'm in position. Your position was in his bed, putting a bullet in his brain while he slept, she hissed, shoving a tray of empty glasses at me. You've gone soft. He's clouded your judgment. He's not the target, I said, the new conviction solid in my gut. Matteo Morty is. Julian is just the gatekeeper. I need him to get to the real killer. Sloane's grip tightened. Your target is the head of the Morty family. That's him. The timeline is now, tonight, or I activate the contingency. A cold worse than any winter swept through me. What contingency? She smiled, a cruel twist of her lips. The necklace had a backup, a failsafe. If you failed to eliminate the primary target by midnight, the secondary protocol engages. Her eyes flicked toward Julian. He dies one way or another, and so does anyone too close to him. She melted back into the crowd, leaving me standing frozen. The necklace was a dud, but she had another play. A sniper, a poison in his drink, a bomb in the building. My mission just exploded. It wasn't about killing Julian anymore. It was about saving him. I pushed through the crowd, my gaze locked on him. He saw me coming, excused himself from a group of investors, and met me near a pillar. "You look stunning," he said, his voice low. His eyes weren't on the dress. They were on my face, reading the panic I couldn't fully hide. "They have another play," I breathed, stepping close as if for a lover's whisper. "Tonight, not me, someone else, a failsafe." He didn't flinch. He simply nodded as if I'd told him it might rain. "I know." "You know." "Mateo's been moving assets into the city for a week. He's here. He wouldn't miss the finale." Julian's hand came up, tucking my hair back in a gesture that looked tender to anyone watching. "I have men on every roof, screening every waiter. Dante's running interference. The building is locked down." He'd turned his own execution into a trap for his cousin, and he'd used me as bait. The betrayal was a physical blow. "You knew I'd come. You knew they'd make a move." "I hoped you'd come," he corrected, his fingers lingering on my neck. "I didn't know what side you'd be on when you did." Before I could respond, the lights dimmed. The countdown to midnight began on giant screens. 10-9. This was it. The chaos of the cheer, the noise, the distraction. The perfect kill window. 8-7. Julian's arm slid around my waist, pulling me tight against him. Not an embrace. A shield. His body between me and the crowd. 6-5. I saw him across the room, Matteo Morty. He looked like a cheaper, crueler version of Julian. He wasn't looking at the clock. He was looking at us. And he was raising a hand, a small remote in his fingers. 4. Julian saw him too. He shifted, turning us, putting his back to his cousin, sacrificing himself as a human barrier. 3. "No," I twisted in his grip, my training taking over. I couldn't get my gun out, not with him holding me, so I used my body. I shoved Julian hard to the side, behind the solid marble pillar. 2. Matteo's thumb pressed down. 1. Happy New Year. The explosion wasn't from a bomb. It was the roar of the crowd, the pop of confetti cannons, the burst of music. But from the direction of Matteo, there was a different sound, a wet, choked gasp. Dante appeared behind him, a garrote wire vanishing into his sleeve as Matteo slumped to the floor, his remote clattering unnoticed under a table. It was over, silent, clean, invisible in the celebration. Julian pulled me back to him, his face pale. "What the hell was that?" he snarled, his composure shattered. "You were supposed to stay behind me." "You were going to take it from me," I shouted back, the adrenaline making me shake. The music swelled, couples kissed, and in our little pocket of space, we stared at each other, breathing heavily, the truth hanging raw between us. He tried to take a kill shot for me. I'd tried to take a kill shot for him. "I love you." The words were out before I could stop them, quiet and fierce in the din. He went perfectly still. The storm in his eyes churned. "You have a terrible way of showing it," he finally said, his voice rough. "I know." A hysterical laugh bubbled in my throat. "I'm an assassin. Subtlety isn't really our strong suit." He didn't laugh. He just looked at me as if seeing me for the very first time. "Why, Raven? After everything, the lies, the gun, why save me?" The noise of the party faded. It was just him, the pillar, and the truth I could no longer outrun. "Because you're not the man who killed my parents," I said, the words scraping my throat raw. "Matteo gave the order. I saw the file. I saw his signature. I was so blinded by the name Morty I didn't look past it. You were trying to stop him. Even then, weren't you?" His jaw tightened. A nod, so slight I almost missed it. "My father's younger brother, a rabid dog, the warehouse fire. It was meant to be a meeting, a truce. Matteo torched it to start a war and pin it on my father's faction. I was too late to stop it." 10 years of rage, of grief, of a life built on a foundation of revenge, crumbled into dust. I'd been hunting the wrong monster. The real monster was dead on the floor, and the man I'd vowed to kill had been a victim too. The gun at my back felt like a monument to my own stupidity. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "It was nothing. It was everything." Julian closed his eyes for a second, a world of pain passing over his features. When he opened them, the decision was made. "The police will be here soon for Mateo. Dante will handle it. We need to go." "Go where?" I asked, numb. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can figure out what use looks like when we're not lying to each other." He took my hand, his grip firm and sure. "But first, we finish this, together." He led me not out of the ballroom, but through a service door, down sterile corridors to the building's secure server room. Dante was there, along with a terrified man in a technician's uniform, Sloane. She was zip-tied to a chair. Julian walked up to her. "You hired my wife to kill me. You tried to bomb her. You work for a dead man." His voice was calm, icy. "You have one chance. Who else knows her face, her real name?" Sloane spat at his feet. "Go to hell. She's a ghost, my ghost. You can't protect her from the life she chose." I stepped forward. The gun was in my hand now. I didn't remember drawing it. I pointed it at Sloane's forehead. "My mentor, my jailer. The life you chose for me, you used my grief. You fed me the wrong target. You made me a weapon against an innocent man." "Not so innocent," Sloane sneered, but fear flickered in her eyes. She'd never seen me look at her like this. "The list," Julian repeated. "Names, locations, now." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The promise of what would happen if she refused hung in the air, colder than the server fans. She broke. She gave us 3 names. Archivists, middlemen, the last links to my old life. Julian looked at Dante and gave a single, slight nod. "Understood, boss," Dante said. He unchained Sloane, not to free her but to lead her away. She didn't look back at me. I lowered the gun. I didn't ask where he was taking her. Some mysteries were better left in the dark. 2 hours later, we were in a black SUV, speeding away from the city. The lights of New York shrank in the rearview mirror. Julian drove. I stared at my hands. "Where are we going?" I asked again. "Upstate, a property, not on any books." He glanced at me. "It's remote, quiet, there's a lake." "A safe house." "A home," he corrected, "if you want it to be." The word home had no meaning to me. It was a place you slept between missions. It wasn't a place with a lake. It wasn't a future. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted to the window. "I don't know how to not be the ghost." "You learn," he said simply. "One day at a time, and you don't do it alone." He reached across the console and took my hand, weaving his fingers through mine. His palm was warm, his grip anchoring. I held on like it was the only solid thing in a world that had dissolved into smoke. The house was not a cabin. It was a modern glass and stone structure that seemed to grow out of the forest, overlooking a vast, frozen lake. It was beautiful, silent, and utterly isolated. The first few days were a tense ceasefire. We moved around each other like unexploded ordnance. The lies were gone, but the habits of deception remained. I caught myself calculating exit routes. He'd wake at the slightest sound. Then one morning, I found him in the great room, a fire cracking in the hearth, staring at a file on his laptop. My file, the one Dante must have compiled. "See anything you like?" I asked, leaning against the doorway. He closed the laptop. "I see a survivor, a fighter." He held out a hand. "Come here." I went. He pulled me down onto the rug in front of the fire, his back against the sofa, me between his legs, my back to his chest. He wrapped his arms around me and just held me. We watched the flames in silence. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Mateo sooner," he said into my hair. "I didn't know who you were, and when I started to suspect, I was afraid the truth wouldn't be enough, that your need for revenge would be bigger than us." It almost was. "But it wasn't," he kissed the top of my head. "You chose me." It was the bedrock truth. In the end, with a gun in my hand and vengeance in my heart, I had chosen him. Slowly, the ice began to melt. We learned each other for real this time. I learned he was a terrible cook but loved to grill, even in the snow. He learned I hated the silence and always needed music playing. We didn't talk much about the past. We started building a present. A week in, a package arrived by secure courier. Inside was a new identity for me. Birth certificate, social security, passport. The name was Raven Thorn. He was thorough, I said, flipping through the flawless documents. Dante had erased the ghost. He's the best, Julian said, looking at me. But you don't have to use it. You can choose your own name, any name you want. I looked at the passport photo, a picture I didn't remember taking. It was me, but the eyes were different, less haunted. Raven Thorn is good, I said softly. It felt like a promise. One afternoon, he brought in the guitar case from the car. He opened it, took out the instrument, and handed it to me. Teach me, he said. It's a prop, I don't play. Neither do I, so we'll learn together. He sat behind me, his arms around me, his hands guiding mine to the frets. We were terrible. The sounds we made were screeches and groans. We laughed until we cried, the absurd, joyful noise echoing in our silent, safe house. That night in bed, wrapped in each other, he said, "The Thorn Foundation, the one for the orphans, I want you to run it." I propped myself up on an elbow. Me, I'm not a philanthropist, You're a woman who knows what it's like to lose everything as a child, he said, his fingers tracing my spine. You're a woman who understands survival. You know how to help them, not just with money, with heart. The offer was a key to a different life. A life of light, not shadows. I thought of the gala, of him on stage talking about giving hope. It hadn't all been a mask. I'd like that, I whispered. Spring came to the lake. The ice cracked and melted. We sat on the dock, our feet dangling over the water that was still too cold. I have to go back to the city soon, he said. There's business to untangle, the legitimate business. I'm dissolving the other, for good. It was the final step. The Underworld Tycoon was abdicating, for me, for us, for the future. I'll come with you, I said. He shook his head. Not yet. Let me make it safe. Let me build you a world where you don't need a gun. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I'll always need you. He turned his face into my hair. You have me. You stole my heart, remember? I'm your prisoner. I smiled against his neck. And you're mine. We sat there as the sun set, painting the sky in colors of fire and gold. The ghosts of our pasts were quiet. The future was a blank page, terrifying and beautiful. He stood and pulled me up. Come on, he said. Let's go in. I'll burn dinner, you'll criticize my technique, and then we'll figure out what movie to watch. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. It was a choice made every day, to love, to stay, to build. We walked back to the house, hand in hand, leaving the shadows behind us, stepping into the light of our own making.